Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for March 18th, 2025. First off, today we're going to go to religionnews.com, where it says Valerie and Nathan Hamaker, co-hosts of Latter-day Struggles, have resigned their LDS church membership rather than attend a church disciplinary council that was likely to result in their excommunication. A mental health counselor serving a mainly Latter-day Saint clientele in Kansas City, Hamaker began airing conversations with active members about challenges they were facing with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her husband, Nathan, an ophthalmologist, soon became her co-host. It's starting to seem like it's hard to be an ethical therapist and stay Mormon. Back to the article. For the first year to year and a half, we didn't hear a word from anybody in leadership in the church, Valerie said in an RNS interview with the couple. The first hint came in August of 2023 as she and Nathan went to see their bishop for a routine renewal of their temple recommends. Both were active members with callings, she in the primary, he with the young men, and both were raising their 4 children in the faith, holding regular family home evenings and scripture study. They didn't imagine there might be a problem. Not only would the bishop not renew their recommends, he wouldn't take them through the church's prescribed recommend interview questions at all. I remember him telling me, "I can't give you the interview because you think you're worthy, but I don't," Valerie said. She and Nathan found this refusal deeply confusing. Never had they heard of a bishop who wouldn't even grant an interview, deciding in advance that a person was not temple worthy. He cited tithing, Nathan explained. "We had said in the podcast that we felt it was okay to pay tithing to outside entities, an honest 10% to any charity that would bless God's children." The bishop replied, "That's not what the handbook says." The bishop told the Hamakers he believed they followed Jesus Christ, but he was wrestling with whether they followed the LDS prophet. Their temple recommends in the balance, they began a long saga of conversations with him and their stake president. Both the bishop and the stake president kind of spilled to us that a large percentage of our ward had already come to them privately to complain about us and asked the bishop to initiate discipline against us, Nathan said. The couple maintained that they're simply saying the quiet things out loud, voicing concerns that members already harbor but can't express for fear of retaliation. As a mental health professional, Valerie said, it was unethical for her to tell people how to govern their lives, whether or not to stay or leave any relationship, including with the church. I just want them to be healthy, and because I'm in this community too, I can hold space for the real problems in the church, but also hold space for the value that the church brings, she said. In one situation, Valerie said, she was counseled by a priesthood leader to follow her therapist's professional standard of care when working with people privately, even if it contradicted the church's teachings. But he also recommended that she should always claim in public that she endorsed the church's teachings, even though doing so in a support group setting would conflict with the professional standard of care. The Hamakers thought this rang false and told the leader that was not the definition of integrity they had learned at church. And this is something that people talk about a lot when they're being excommunicated. It's okay to hold beliefs contrary to those of the church as long as you don't state them publicly. The church would love for you to sit in the pews and pay your tithing and keep the dodgy parts of the church's history to yourself. Back to the article. A low point came in early January 2024 when Valerie shared her testimony on Fast Sunday and expressed to her ward of 20 years that she was trying to create safety for all members no matter where they were in their faith journey. She was followed by the bishop who, she said, publicly shamed me and Nathan. The bishop told the congregation that he loved the Hamakers who had been in his office many times to speak with him, but that in response to ward members' complaints about them in their podcast, he had gone to the stake president for advice. Nathan reported that the bishop followed that by telling the congregation that they all just need to love the Hamakers, adding, "Just remember, even your bad kids are invited to Christmas dinner." Since then, the Hamakers have cycled through a new set of leaders, but this leadership roulette didn't improve the situation. In August 2024, they were called in to meet with their entire new stake presidency and new bishop, which they knew was not a good sign. They appealed to their former stake president to provide his promised advocacy, but got no response. No word from this former leader and friend to this day, Valerie said. The final strike came February 24th when a text message notified them that a church disciplinary council would be held for them to consider your actions and statements relative to the doctrines of the church. They would not be permitted to bring legal counsel, and any witnesses had to be approved in advance. The letter did not make any particular charge that would be grounds for excommunication, which the church now calls withdrawal of membership. However, it closed with the line, "It is our hope and prayer that this membership council will lead you to a greater trust in the Lord and his designated prophets." Exhausted and disheartened, the Hamakers quietly resigned their memberships. Now, that was only portions of that article. If you want to hear the story from the Hamakers themselves, please go listen to their podcast episode that talks about it. You can find it at ValerieHamaker.com. The link will also be in the show notes. To me, this story is so reminiscent of what happened with Natasha Helfer. She wanted to be an ethical therapist and found out in a similar fashion that she couldn't be an ethical therapist and stay a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now let's go to the church's own newsroom for a letter that says, "The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Allen, Texas Stake, March 13th, 2025. Dear Mayor Lessner and Fairview Town Council members, I write this letter on behalf of the leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to discuss the proposed temple project in Fairview. We value our relationship with the community and are eager to work together for a positive outcome to this project and our long-term relationship as friends and neighbors. Temples are sacred to us. They are the houses of the Lord, sanctuaries where we commune quietly with Him, unite families for eternity, and experience hope and peace. Each of the 376 temples around the world embodies this faith. We also deeply cherish our connection with the communities where temples are located. Local members of the church are an integral part of the Fairview community and the surrounding areas. We appreciate the vision for the development that preserves Fairview's unique character. We hope to support such an approach and want to reassure residents that the temple will be a beautiful and peaceful place that enhances the neighborhood in alignment with the long-term vision for the area. The chosen 8.1-acre site is well positioned among existing religious buildings along a busy commercial road, allowing for beautiful landscaping that will enhance and beautify the surroundings. We are committed to not only meeting but exceeding local standards whenever reasonably possible. However, it is troubling that members of the town council seem to have already withdrawn their support from the agreement made during the recent mediation. When the church sought to engage with council members individually to discuss their commitment to this compromise, we were met with refusal. While we continue to believe that the town's denial of the current application substantially burdens the practice and expression of religious beliefs for the church, we would still be prepared to shoulder that burden and file our application for the smaller temple." I have to admit, I'm having a hard time reading this with a straight face. Building a temple that would fit just as many people, but isn't as tall and ostentatious, is not a burden on the warmed-over masonry that happens inside a temple. I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to try not to laugh. Before filing an application for a smaller temple, we ask only for assurance that the town would live up to the original obligations it made during mediation. We remain concerned, however, that our religious rights could be compromised if the town does not honor its word as agreed to during mediation. We entered mediation with hopes for a respectful and expedient solution that advanced everyone's goals. That remains our hope. It is important to clarify misinformation that may have circulated about this process. It is disheartening to face mischaracterizations of our proposed temple as against the law, when it is entirely appropriate under local law and fully protected by both federal and state laws that protect our religious rights in the United States of America. Our intention has always been to collaborate openly at every stage of this process. Despite our sincere efforts to avoid conflict, we must stand firm against any actions that would impede the rights of members of our church, or any church, to worship freely as protected by the laws of the land. There is a way forward. We respectfully invite the town to reaffirm the commitments it made during the mediation process, which previously the town council unanimously voted to support. Upholding the agreement is an essential reassurance that would make it unnecessary for us to seek judicial assistance to resolve this impasse. Thank you for your consideration. We consider ourselves part of the Fairview community and share this information in a spirit of transparency and friendship. We hope to find a mutually acceptable solution that honors Fairview's future and the sacred role of the planned temple on this beautiful site. We hope you will engage with Fairview residents who want this temple and who share a love both for their faith and their local community. Sincerely, President Daniel M. Trithall, Allen, Texas Stake, The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I honestly think that the damage in this community has been done, and it likely will not be undone by this letter. Those who don't support the temple now have a lot of bad feelings for the Mormon Church and its members. I also think it's super weird that a stake president in Texas was given authority to speak on behalf of church leaders. I don't know that I've seen that done before. This letter was also published on the church's website, which makes it even more official. I guess we will just have to wait and see what happens in the small town of Fairview, Texas, and whether or not a giant Mormon temple will be built, ruining the town's motto of Keep It Country. Now let's go to the Latter-day Saints subreddit for a post that says, "Struggling as a convert. I feel like the version of the church that my missionaries taught me is so far off from what the church is in reality, and I'm really struggling. When I first joined, I was taught the basics just like everyone else. But as I've been around longer, gotten the priesthood, my endowments sealed, etc., it seems like the idea of the church that was pitched to me was so different than what I'm seeing now. It feels like I basically have a second job with callings, having to study scripture daily, tithing, ministering, feeding missionaries. Instead of feeling happy and fulfilled like I used to, now I just feel bitter and angry. On top of all that, the more I learn, the more I notice myself saying, 'That's kind of weird,' or 'Wait, what? The missionaries didn't say a word about that.' I don't want to walk. I want to find joy again in something that at one time brought me so much joy. I'm sure I'm not the first and I won't be the last, but if you've experienced this, please let me know what worked or didn't work. Thank you." I do think this happens to converts of the Mormon Church a lot because there are many things that the missionaries won't talk about to a new convert unless that convert brings it up. So, if you're looking into the Mormon Church as a convert, please do your research. Google the things that the missionaries aren't saying and ask them in-depth questions about the church's history and the many things that this person mentioned in their post that you will be expected to do after you join. This actually reminds me of after we left the church, one of my children asked me if they could be baptized, and I said, "Absolutely, if that's what you want to do, but I want to let you know that these are the things that you promise to do if you get baptized." And this child said, "Oh, I don't want to do any of that. I just wanted to have a party." And I was like, "Well, let's just have a party then. You don't have to get baptized to have a party." Now let's go to a post in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Members Around the World Facebook group made by Mike Mahana that says, "This is a questionnaire for those who attack the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Am I a modern-day Pharisee or Sadducee? A brief questionnaire for reflection. This questionnaire is designed to help you recognize any tendencies like pride, fear of losing influence, or dismissing modern revelation that might align with either group's mindset as it relates to the Church of Jesus Christ in these latter days. Answer yes or no to each question. If you can humbly and honestly answer these questions, that says a great deal about your character as a disciple of Jesus Christ. Number 1, fear of losing influence. The Pharisees and Sadducees feared losing power as Jesus gained followers. They prioritized authority over seeking truth. That sounds familiar. Do I or my pastor feel threatened by the growth or influence of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Yes or no? Do I or my pastor feel critical of the church because its teachings challenge our personal beliefs or traditions? Yes or no? Do I or my pastor feel at risk of losing power or influence if someone leaves our church to join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Yes or no? 2, financial motivation. The Sadducees profited from temple practices and focused more on material gain than spiritual truth. I wonder if a church with billions in a rainy day fund would fall into that same category. Do I or my pastor worry about losing financial support or material gains as people join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Have I or my pastor profited through books, videos, or speeches by criticizing the church? Do I or my pastor feel at risk of losing tithes or offerings if someone leaves our church? 3. Misunderstanding or misinformation. Both groups misunderstood Jesus, relying on false accusations. They rejected truth that didn't align with their traditions. Have I or my pastor formed opinions about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, mostly from secondhand or biased sources? Have I or my pastor avoided learning directly from the church's official sources or its members? Look, if you want to learn really crazy stuff about the church's history, just go to the church's website and look up the gospel topics essays. You don't have to go to unofficial church sources anymore. Because of the internet, the church has been forced into being more transparent, not fully transparent, but more transparent about the more messy parts of their past. Do I or my pastor label the church's teachings as heresy or false doctrine without thorough investigation or prayer? Number 4, pride or judgment. The Pharisees harshly judged others, focusing on outward flaws and ignoring personal weaknesses. Do I or my pastor focus on the flaws of others while neglecting my own shortcomings or my own faith's weaknesses? Do I or my pastor criticize members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints without acknowledging their sincere efforts to follow Christ? 5. Spiritual blindness. Both Pharisees and Sadducees clung to preconceived ideas and traditions. They had eyes but did not see. Do I or my pastor completely reject the possibility of modern prophets or additional scripture, finding it outside my tradition? Am I or my pastor unwilling to accept the good fruits like service, family focus, or acts of love as evidence of divine influence? Final reflections. If you've answered these questions honestly, you're showing a desire to seek the Lord's truth. If you said yes to several, ask yourself why. Are you relying on secondhand sources, judging harshly, or fearing a loss of influence? In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, congregational leaders serve without pay, encouraging service motivated by love rather than money. Where do you stand? This questionnaire isn't meant to label anyone, but to prompt deeper humility, love, and openness to God's work today. Please let me know how you fared with that questionnaire in the comments. Now we will go to graincentral.com, where it says the Utah-based Mormon Church has added a large-scale dryland cropping operation in the renowned Golden Triangle region of northern New South Wales to its growing Australian agricultural portfolio. The 5694 HA, which amounts to 14,070 acres, North Star aggregation, 45 kilometers north of Moree and 55 kilometers from Goondiwindi, formed part of the One Tree portfolio offered in June last year by Proterra Investment Partners, with hopes of raising more than $250 million. LAWD agents Danny Thomas and Elizabeth Doyle were unable to confirm the buyer or the price, but said the North Star aggregation had sold and settled and were happy with the outcome. If I had kept my tithing instead of giving it to the church so that they could stash it away for later, I could be buying land too. Now let's go to Pathos.com for a so ridiculous it's funny comment from Dan Peterson. He says, this just in from the evangelical-leaning Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee is a conservative Christian news satire website. Motto, fake news you can trust. Mormon wife designs future planet on Pinterest. Dan says, obviously they're mocking a caricature of us, but it gave rise to a thought, and I permit myself a thought every day. Some critics like to claim that my church is sexist and misogynistic, but what other faith allows women such grand scope for their dreams of the future? Really, Dan? Really? An openly fake news site prints an article about a Mormon woman designing her planet on Pinterest. And that helps you show how your church isn't sexist or misogynistic. Probably not the flex you think it is, buddy. And last up today, let's read this great quote that says, one reason why trauma survivors often bond with each other so profoundly, which is different from a trauma bond, is because people who've been through certain things speak a different emotional language than the rest of humanity. And we recognize that language when we hear it. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.